Good, very early morning. It is not quite 4 a.m. here in Northeast Ohio, and we are heading out on a very long, grueling, one-day, 1,000-mile trip with the F-150 Lightning. We're driving west here all the way across Ohio, all the way across Indiana, all the way across Illinois to the Mississippi River and the border of Iowa. There we are loading up a very large, heavy piece of equipment into the bed of the truck. It'll take the whole bed, weighs about 1,600 pounds. Then we're going to turn around, drive all the way back here to Northeast Ohio, and we're going to try to do it all in one very long day, hence the early start. The piece of equipment is a wood-burning boiler that my son is going to be using to heat his house with and heat the hot water during the winter, I guess, with as well. So we might as well get started. I'm not getting anywhere here standing in the driveway, aggravating the neighbors with the bright lights. So let's get on the road and start heading west. We are heading out fully charged. The guessometer says we have 281 miles of range. That sounds about right. I think we'll be averaging about 2.0 miles per kilowatt hour heading out empty. We're going to average about 70 miles an hour. And our first stop should be either in extreme western Ohio or eastern Indiana. Here we go.
Welcome back to E-Hermes, your electric adventure travel channel. Please remember to subscribe, hit the like button, and hit that bell button to be notified of our upcoming content.
It is really getting to be finally real morning. The sun is about to come up. We're about to go to our first stop. We've gone 171 miles. We still have 35%. We don't really need to stop yet, but between Toledo and Chicago, the charging infrastructure, especially on the toll road, is kind of lacking. So we're going to go ahead and stop at the last service plaza in Ohio, because we can't quite get to the one in South Bend. I was hoping we could, but can't quite stretch it that far. So we're going to stop here in Ohio. We're probably going to change drivers for a little bit and go ahead and get charged. We're going to charge more than the car suggests. In this case, we're probably going to charge to 80%. Maybe we can skip this one and get all the way to Chicago and not have to charge it all in Indiana. We will have to see. So the Ohio Turnpike has both Tesla superchargers and Electrify America chargers at the service plazas. This one, because it's Electrify America, of course one of the cables didn't work, but the other cable does work on the charger. So we went ahead and we got it started. It's ramping up. We are up to 165 kilowatts. Pretty good. Hopefully we can maintain that for a little bit. We're going to go to, I think we're going to go to 78%. That's about right. Probably go to 80%. Let's see how long it takes. So at the service plaza, they also have these campsites with at least electric hookups, and I think there's water and maybe even sewer. I forget how much it is for a night, but it's reasonably priced, and it's right here on the highway, so if you're traveling through, it makes a pretty good deal. Because we're on such a grueling trip, and because it's his boiler we're going to pick up anyhow, we do not have Mrs. E-Hermes with us today. We have eldest son of E-Hermes instead. He's actually going to take over driving. Our charging session is just about done. We are up to 78%. It has been 26 minutes. So we went from 30 to 80 is 50%. So that's not too bad. So we're gonna get on the road here and see where our next charging stop is. So I was sleeping, and the eldest son of E-Hermes just did what the truck said, which is not always a great thing. He drove us to South Bend, Indiana. We're here at Electrify America. I don't like this station for a bunch of reasons. First of all, station number 4 didn't work. Well, it was getting 44 kilowatts. Wasn't gonna put up with that, so we moved over here. We're getting 118, but we really didn't need this stop, and he's probably added a stop to our trip. There was an EV Go just inside Chicago we could have made it to easily, and then stopped in Rockford, or maybe even gone all the way. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna charge here, and we're gonna get up to enough to get to Rockford. I don't know what it's gonna take. Order 55%. That'll probably get us to about 80% just to be safe. And then we'll only have that one stop, so it's not the end of the world. The things I don't like about this charger is, one, it's way off the highway, about 4 or 5 miles, in town kind of traffic driving, so it takes a little while to get here. And it's at a mall, which I'm sure is a great mall when it's open, but it's early on a Saturday and it's not really open yet, and there's nowhere to pee. So that's never a good thing. You always got to have a place to go to the bathroom and hopefully get something to eat or drink, and it really doesn't have it because Also, strangely, across the street from the mall, it's usually in, malls are usually in kind of built up areas. It's actually a residential neighborhood over there. So there's not a lot to do here. So here we are. You let the young man do his thing, and of course he messes it up. But that's how they learn. That's how children learn. We got to let them learn. So we're going to go ahead and charge here to 80% and then get back on the highway and get to Rockford after we find a place to go to the bathroom. Well, the boy's youth and inexperience is not as tragic as it may seem at first glance. First of all, we're not going to this charger. There's no reason to. We're going to go to this charger in Rockford. In fact, the only reason we're going to Rockford is because between Chicago and Fulton, there are no chargers, basically. So we're going to go a little bit out of our way to go to Rockford so that when we get the piece of equipment in the truck, we can head back and we can actually get to this charger. So we're going to have another stop anyhow. The only bad part about this stop at Apple Carplay, the only bad part about this is there were no facilities at that last charger, so now we had to make a special stop for a potty break, and that did cost us probably 15 or 20 minutes we didn't need. So generally you didn't do that bad, but there were errors made for sure.
Just need to pick better spots.
Yep, you need to pick better spots. Here we are at the Rockford, Illinois Electrify America. We're only getting 85 kW, not quite sure why, but we're gonna go have a nice lunch, and we're gonna be here for probably an hour anyhow, so that'll give us what we need. We're gonna charge up to at least 90% because we're heading out into the hinterlands where there are no chargers, and we have to get back here basically, or back to Aurora outside Chicago. Haven't decided which yet. We'll see how much we get there with and what kind of range we're getting once we load up the boiler and start driving with it. I still don't even know how much it weighs. I think it's between 1,500 and 1,800 pounds. I don't know exactly how tall it's going to be, how high it's going to stick up above the cab and really give us wind resistance issues. So let's charge up here, go have lunch, get loaded, and see what we get. Right across the parking lot from the Electrify America chargers is Murphy's Pub and Grill, or something, Murphy's Irish Pub. And I got the fish and chips, and eldest son of E-Hermes got a burger.
Ben's burger.
Ben's burger with fries. Is it good?
Yeah.
He likes it?
Yep.
So, good way to kill some time while you're charging. Lunch at Murphy's Pub and Grill was pretty good. Service was good. Took about as long as you would expect. We never got great speeds
Proceed to
here.
the route.
We never got great speeds here, though. And so it took a little longer than I would have expected. Yeah, 69 minutes to get up to 87%. It's too long. And it's not so bad now. This is where I expect to be at this state of charge. But we never got above 100 kilowatts, even when it was close to empty. So if we come back to this one, which I think we will with the piece of equipment, we'll definitely use a different station, not number 4. So the maximum load rating is 1,727 pounds. The scale says this weighs 1,750 pounds, maybe. Pretty close. Hopefully I'll lose some weight on the way home because you have to add the weight of us in there too. But it's in here. We've got it strapped down and we're going to head back to Ohio. Okay, the ride out here was 548 miles, so we're gonna go 1,100 miles today. We averaged 2.0 miles per kilowatt hour. We had about 11 hours of driving. Gonna be a little slower going home, and we're gonna have more stops. So I think we're not gonna do this in one 24-hour day, but we're gonna do it in one 26 or 27-hour day. Here we go. So the label says 1,727. It says we're 1,725. It's in the red. I'm not quite sure why. I think it has our weight already figured in. But if not, we're only off by our body weight, so I think we're okay. Still a pretty big load back there. Don't really feel it. I've had it up to 70. The steering's a little light in the front, but not bad. Because we were able to get such a deep charge in Rockford when we stopped for that long lunch, we're going to take a chance and make a dash for basically Aurora, Illinois, on the outskirts of Chicago. Now it shows plenty of extra range there, but it's still thinking I'm going to get close to 2.0 miles per kilowatt hour like I got coming out here. When we're really on this trip only getting 1.5. So it's going to be excitingly close. Right now the difference is 23 miles. It was 31 when we started, so not too bad. We're going to go 65 instead of 70, and I think we'll cruise in with about 5 miles of range. 40 miles to go, 47 miles of range. What could possibly go wrong? There's a ridge that separates the Mississippi River watershed from the Lake Michigan watershed, and we've been fighting up over that. We're down to just 4 miles of buffer with 22 miles to go. Getting a little bit nervous, so we've slowed all the way down to 55. I think the speed limit right now is, 65. So it's not quite as ugly as it could be, but we've had to slow down quite a bit. Now we're down to 3 miles of buffer. Will we make it? Here's the way you really have to look at it. We have 10% range. There's a 130 kilowatt hour battery. That means we have 13 kilowatt hours. If we're getting 1.5, which we have been now for a couple hours, so we're getting at least 1.5 miles per kilowatt hour. 1.5 times 13 is a little over 18. We've got 18 miles of range. We should make it, but it's gonna be really close. Getting all the usual warnings. Now that we have 9 miles of range, we've only got 2 miles to go, so we should be fine. We're down to 4%. I think we'll get there with either 4 or maybe a high 3%. And that is plenty. But we did pay for all the battery, so by golly, we're gonna use almost every bit of that battery. We did arrive in the Meijer at Oswego, I think it is, Illinois. And here we are, we did get here with 4%. We are at the 150 kW charger. I didn't take the 350s because the faster cars can use them, although that Chevy Bolt's at a 350, which makes no sense. But anyhow, to each their own. We're up to 107. I think we might get up a little higher than this, but this is gonna take a little while. We knew that, but I think we may have eliminated a charge. We may be able to get away with just 3 charges total going home, just like we did going out. And if we can, that'll be pretty dandy. That'll save us about 45 minutes. This was not a great charging stop. So this is actually the highest speed we got was about 125, 126. And now we're closing on 80%. It's going to drop right off. It's going to be almost an hour we were here. But we did gamble and got here. And now we can get back to South Bend and then back to Western Ohio and then home. We should only have 2 more charging stops. Day has turned back into night, but we are really in good shape. We are just outside South Bend, Indiana. We're gonna stop there. We're gonna get something to eat before we go to the charger because there's nothing at the charger. Then we have 1 more charging stop outside Toledo and we'll be home. We have 27 miles of buffer to get to the charger, which is way more than we need. We're averaging 1.5 miles per kilowatt hour. That's about as good as I could have hoped for with that weight and height on here with the extra wind resistance. So we're doing really good. Our next stop will be the fast food restaurant. I think we're going to Culver's, we decided. We're gonna get that. We're gonna take it to the mall in South Bend and charge there, and then hit the service plaza in Ohio, and then we'll be home. Here we are at the Bazaar Mall in South Bend, Indiana, and it's bizarre because it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. As we said this morning, So it's bounded on one side by a cemetery, another side by a cornfield, the third side by a residential area, and then I guess the fourth side has some other businesses. It is really a strange placement for the mall, first of all, and then for the chargers. The problem is we went to Culver's, which we probably wasted a half an hour driving to the Culver's, waiting in Culver's. It takes a little while to get there. It takes a little while to get the food. Then we had to drive back over to the charger, and now we're gonna sit here and eat and charge. But it's just a really strange place. And there's not any amenities around it. We're gonna get decent speeds here, but we've got to get up to 80% again, so we're gonna be here for probably close to an hour. So it's gonna take a little while. This is the downside, but I have to say it's kind of amazing that we're taking an 1,800-pound piece of equipment, hauling it in the truck, and getting any kind of decent range. We're getting 1.4, 1.5 miles per kilowatt hour, and I think that's pretty amazing. Not only the weight, because that's massive, but look how high it sits above the cab, so there's a lot of wind resistance there. And we're still doing fairly well. So I'm pleased overall, and driving it, you don't know there's anything back there. I literally almost went to the drive-thru in Culver's because I forgot it was back there, and that would have been ugly because we would hit the little post and had all kinds of problems. But we didn't. John saved me. Good job, eldest son of E-Hermes. We arrived at the Ohio Service Plaza. This is actually one Service Plaza further east, so closer to home than the one we stopped at coming out. We arrived with 6%. We're now up to 7%. Getting 160 kW. That's kind of nice. We're going to stay here till about 70%. That'll be enough to get us home. May stay at 80% just to be safe. Don't really want to screw this up on the last leg. And then we'll be headed for home. It is 1:37 a.m. We've been at this 21 and a half hours. We're going to be about a half hour here. That'll be 22, and we've got about 2 hours home. I think we might make it in 24 hours. The load back here is still doing wonderfully. Really, you don't know what's back there when you're driving. I know it's huge and massive and weighs a ton. Well, 3/4 of a ton about. But you don't know what's back here. And it's ridden just fine all the way home to this point. And like I say, we'll finish up charging here and then head for home. Let you know what the statistics are when we get home, and then have some final thoughts and some comparisons of fuel costs compared to gas when we get some sleep, and we'll do that work tomorrow morning, the next day morning. Maybe it's this morning, I don't know, after I've slept. Earlier in the video on the way out, I mentioned these campsites they have at the service plazas here on the Ohio Turnpike. And I was wrong. They don't have sewer and water connections right at the site. They do have the typical 20, 30, and 50 amp 240 volt outlets. It's $20 a night. And while they don't have sewer and water connections at the site, at the end of the campground there is a dump station where you can dump and fill with fresh water. And as I say, it's $20 per night, which is still a pretty good deal. Pretty convenient if you're traveling across the country. You might have heard in the background what sounded like really bad road noise when we were driving. Actually, these tie-down straps have been singing in the wind pretty good. And he's put some Velcro on here to try to stop the vibration some. It's still doing a little bit, not nearly as bad as it was. But that is the only real way you know there's anything back there. That and looking in the rearview mirror in the truck. You can't see through the cab, anything except the back of the unit. But other than that, it hasn't moved. Of course, as heavy as it is, I'm not surprised. It's actually ridden amazingly, if you ask me. We have arrived back at home. It is 4:38, so it took us 24 hours and 40 minutes. We arrived with 6% battery, saying we're, about out of battery. No kidding. 10 miles of range. Trip 2. So on the way back, it was 523 miles. We saved some distance by not going up to Rockford. We had to drive a little slower, and I think it probably still saved a little bit of time. We averaged 1.4 miles per kilowatt hour on the way home. We averaged 2.0 miles per kilowatt hour on the way out there. The total trip was 1,060
71.3 miles. Overall, we average 1.7 miles per kilowatt hour. We'll do some math on what it would take in fuel, what it costs in electricity, and we'll have all that for you tomorrow when I get some sleep, but I'm going to bed now.
In summary, the trip went very well. The truck handled beautifully. We used the Blue Cruise 2.0, whatever it's called, hands-free driving, although with that load back there, I did keep my hands pretty close to the steering wheel, just in case something happened. But the truck handled really well. The only real challenge was the little bit of the lack of charging infrastructure in Western Illinois. There were some Tesla superchargers out there, so in 6 months or so, we'll be able to use those, and that issue will even completely go away. So now some of the statistics. The trip was 1,071 miles. My old 2016 F-150 probably averages on the highway between 16 and 18 miles per gallon. We'll call it 17. I think with a load like this, it would have dropped to about 11 miles per gallon. So we're going to average that out to 14 miles per gallon. That equals 76.5 gallons at $3.75 per gallon, which is kind of the going rate these days. That would be $286.88. We spent $196.78 DC fast charging at the Electrify America stations. We added another $18.33 of electricity here at home to bring the battery back up to full since we left with it full, for a total of $215.11. So we saved $71.77. Now, of course, had we done more home charging, like if this were local trips, like perhaps for a business hauling something heavy, where they were always charging at their own location, the savings would have been much greater. We certainly hope that you enjoyed this video showing some of the capabilities of the F-150 Lightning. If you did, please hit that like button. Please remember to subscribe, and please hit that bell button to be notified of our upcoming content. Thank you!